The 1930s, the Soviet Union. After investigation reveals that some members of the former Bolshevik Party question Stalin's authority, and that there is a network of party members supposedly working against him, Stalin believes anyone with ties to the Bolsheviks or Lenin's government is a threat to his leadership and needs to go. He initiates the Great Purge, which starts with the arrests of party members, Bolsheviks, and members of the Red Army, and then grows to include Soviet peasants, members of the intelligentsia, and members of certain nationalities. However, the repressions take place not only in the Soviet Union, but also in Mongolia, the first Asian and the second country in the world, after Russia, to adopt communism. Purges and eliminations of the enemies of the people that affect the whole country, party, army, and especially the Buddhist clergy, result in at least 20 to 35,000 victims, about 3 to 5% of Mongolia's population at that time. One of the victims is the former Mongolian Queen Consort. Her name is Genepil. Queen Consort Genepil was born as Genepil in 1905 to a noble family in northern Mongolia. The family lived around the Bogd Monastery, one of the largest and most important monasteries in Mongolia. At that time, Mongolia was ruled by Bogd Khan. However, after the revolution in 1921, he was allowed to stay on the throne as ruler in name only. In 1923, Tsendin Dondogdulam, the Queen Consort of Mongolia, died. To maintain the image of the monarchy, her widowed husband, Bogd Khan, began searching for a suitable bride. The same year the former queen died, Genepil was chosen among a group of 15 women between the ages of 18 and 20 years old, who were selected by the king's councillors. The courtiers took no notice of the fact that she had recently married a man named Lufsan Damba. After the marriage, Genepil became Queen Consort Genepil and lived with Bogd Khan until his death on the 20th of May 1924, when the monarchy was abolished. After leaving the Mongolian court, Genepil returned to her family and with Lufsan Damba, with whom she had 2 children, a son and a daughter. After the death of Bogd Khan, the Mongolian People's Republic, a socialist state, was created. It was a one-party state ruled by the Mongolian People's Revolutionary Party and maintained close political and economic ties with the Soviet Union. This made Mongolia the first Asian and the second country in the world after Russia to adopt communism. The Mongolian People's Republic was modeled on the Soviet Union and became its satellite state until the year 1990. As in the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin, Mongolian politics went through several abrupt changes of direction in the 1920s and 30s. The Fifth Congress in 1926 called for restriction and nationalization of private property. The Seventh Congress in 1928 denounced previous right opportunism and dismissed several leaders. In 1929, the state began expropriating monastery property and tried to force herdsmen into collective farms and communes. During 1930 to 1932, there were uprisings led by the lamas of several monasteries, the largest of which took place in 1932 and was brutally suppressed, and herdsmen began to slaughter their livestock or herd their animals across the border. From September 1937 to April 1939, Stalinist purges in Mongolia saw mass arrests of top party and state leaders, lamas, soldiers, and citizens on false charges of counter-revolution and spying for Japan. The repressions were an extension of the Stalinist purges, also known as the Great Purge, unfolding across the Soviet Union around the same time. Soviet NKVD advisors, under the nominal direction of Mongolia's de facto leader, Khorloogiin Choibalsan, persecuted thousands of individuals and organizations perceived as threats to the Mongolian Revolution and the growing Soviet influence in the country. As in the Soviet Union, methods of repression included torture, show trials, executions, and imprisonment in remote forced labor camps, often in Soviet gulags. Estimates differ, but anywhere between 20 and 35,000 so-called enemies of the revolution were executed, a figure representing 3 to 5% of Mongolia's total population at that time. Prime Ministers Beljidin Genden and Anandin Amar, for example, were accused of counter-revolution and shot in Moscow in 1937 and 1941, respectively. Official figures show that an estimated 17,000 monks were killed. Victims included those accused of espousing Tibetan Buddhism, pan-Mongolist nationalism, and pro-Japanese sentiment. Buddhist clergy, aristocrats, intelligentsia, political dissidents, and ethnic Buryats and Kazakhs suffered the greatest losses. Khorloogiin Choibalsan was the man who, as head of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, led a dictatorship and organized Stalinist purges in Mongolia between 1937 and 1939. Following the Russian model, Choibalsan opened gulags in the countryside to imprison dissidents. While the Interior Ministry of the Soviet Union, the NKVD, effectively managed the purge by staging show trials and carrying out executions, a frequently intoxicated Choibalsan was sometimes present during the torture and interrogations of suspected counter-revolutionaries, including old friends and comrades. Choibalsan rubber-stamped the NKVD execution orders and at times personally directed executions. He also added names of political enemies to the NKVD arrest lists, simply to settle old scores. Because of her former status as Queen Consort, Genepil was also targeted, and the communists arrested her in 1937. Genepil's daughter, Khan, recalled the sudden disappearance of her mother as a child, saying, "They took her away at night. She did not wake us, only left a piece of sugar on our pillows. I still remember the joy of a sudden discovery of that rare delicacy in the morning." Genepil was accused of working to stage an uprising with the help of Japan. She was accused of undermining the power of the people, participating in the organization of the rebellion, and raising funds to restore the Khanate to power. Genepil's property was confiscated, and she herself was subjected to torture using the methods used by the Russian secret police. Genepil eventually pleaded guilty and was sentenced to death. In May 1938, when Genepil was executed along with the representatives of the country's spiritual and intellectual elite, she was only 33 years old and 5 months pregnant. Her father was executed together with her. In the late 1940s, the relationship between Khorloogiin Choibalsan, who organized Stalinist repressions in Mongolia, and his former hero Stalin, deteriorated to the point that by 1949, Choibalsan refused to attend Stalin's 70th birthday celebration in Moscow. In late 1951, however, Choibalsan traveled to Moscow to receive treatment for kidney cancer. According to some sources, this was at the insistence of the Soviets due to the lack of equipment in Mongolia to treat the illness. He was taken by train to the hospital for a week, and he died there on the 26th of January, 1952, soon after he had arrived. Due to the falling out between himself and Stalin that preceded his stay in Moscow, it is often suspected that Choibalsan was killed by the agents of the MGB, the Soviet Ministry of State Security. If you're a Star Wars fan, the look and style of Genepil and other Mongolian noble ladies in the images from the period of 1920s and 1930s might look familiar to you. The costume design for the Star Wars character of Padme Amidala took inspiration from a 1921 image of a Mongolian lady that is commonly, though incorrectly, identified as Genepil. There were many tears shed for Queen Genepil. Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.